All right, welcome to Pro Football. First 50 years where we take the past and we bring it back to life. I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970, the year of the merger. I mean, you can go online, and especially if you're going back to a game from like the 20s and the 30s, you can go online and find obviously who won the game, what the box score, who scored a touchdown, how far the field goal was, somebody kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might be able to find starting lineups for each team. But exactly what happened during the game. Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we got to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos or nothing like that going on. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on. And today's game, it's a rematch. Oh, man. Both these teams had a little odd schedules to start their 1959 season. This is the week 3, October 11th, 1959. The Cardinals at the Redskins at Griffith Stadium. We're halfway into October. The Redskins have been playing basically their preseason since August, and this is the first game the Redskins played during the season actually at home because the baseball season was over with. There was no way in HEL double hockey sticks. They shared Griffith Stadium with the Washington Senators. The Washington Senators was like the worst team in baseball, so they were not making the World Series or anything. But this is the first time the Redskins all season long, including the 6 exhibition games in the first 2 weeks of the season. So they played 8 games, and not one of them were at home. This would be as I said, the 3rd week of the season. I'll show you the schedule here. Both teams played first 4 weeks are just a little bit of odd schedules. So let's get rid of that. And we'll check out the schedules here. Go to the Washington Redskins here. Oh, no, all right. I lied. My bad. We'll go to the Chicago Cardinals here first. Now, basically, they were both pretty much the schedules were pretty much both the same. Meaning, as we see here, the Cardinals played the Redskins in week 1. Then they played the Cleveland Browns in week 2. Then in week 3, they played the Washington Redskins in week 3. Then in week 4, they played the Cleveland Browns. So Redskins, Browns, Redskins, Browns. The Redskins were pretty much the same way. I'll show you that in just a second. But as we see here, the first game of the season, the Cardinals played the Redskins at home, and the Cardinals would win. Then the following week, they would lose. So both these teams actually were 1-1. After 2 weeks, both tied atop the Eastern Division at 1-1. Every team in the Eastern Division was 1-1 after the first 2 weeks. It was all downhill after that. I mean, as you can see here, the Cardinals would win one more game the whole rest of the season. The Cardinals will win 2 games. Pop Ivy, their coach, had some success coaching, but some of his success also came in the Canadian Football League. And here they played August 5th. They played the Toronto Argonauts, the Cardinals here in Toronto, Ontario at Exhibition Stadium. Because Pop Ivy, what was it, 4 years or 5 years? What was he? 4. He was the head coach of the Edmonton Eskimos from 54 to 57. So he had some success. I mean, obviously, is one of the reasons why he came here to coach the Cardinals. I mean, you could see he was 11-5 one year, 14-2, 11-5, and 14-2. He finished in first place every year 4 straight years he was coaching the Edmonton Eskimos. But as you see, he was anything but with the Cardinals here. He was 2-9, 2-10. And at 6-5-1, actually had a winning record in 1960. 61, they were 5-7. Then he went to coach the Houston Oilers, and they were 11-3. So I mean, he had some success, but not too much with the Cardinals. The Cardinals were this was a really a bad time for the Cardinals. They had a hard time, as you see here, getting attendance. See, when they played, let's see here, they played Soldier Field. This one season, the year before, they were playing at Comiskey Park. This one season, just for one season, they played at Soldier Field. But even so, at Soldier Field, I mean, you can see they got 21,000 for the first game of the season. Then the Browns came with Jim Brown and all of that and everything. They got 19, almost 20,000, just 20,000 fans. It was so crazy. They were looking to leave Chicago because they were always playing the redhead stepchild to the Chicago Bears. The Bears would get the attendance, the Cardinals would not. And it's been that way. And throughout the 50s, the Cardinals just were not winning football games. And, I'm going to be rocket scientists. Fans want to see a winner. If you win football games, the fans are going to come. Cardinals will not win football games. Therefore, the fans were staying away. So the Cardinals were looking for an out. Where can we go? And so 2 of their home games, actually, they played in Metropolitan Stadium, where the Minnesota Vikings first started playing in 1961. They played the Philadelphia Eagles on October 25th, but they only drew 20,000. Then they played the Giants there on November 22nd. They played the Giants at Metropolitan Stadium, and they drew over 26,000. But still, it was not very good. They did when they played the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. They got 48,000. See, the Bears, they drew, but I mean the Cardinals were just looking for some place to go. They were possibly looking maybe to move to Minnesota. Didn't have to because the Vikings were established in 1961. But the Cardinals were looking obviously to move, and this was their last season in Chicago, 1960. They moved to St. Louis. They were trying to move and just get out, but the NFL was rather against them moving. They wanted them in Chicago, and they hit them with like hefty fines or a fee or whatever to move. And the Cardinals just couldn't afford it. They had a hard time affording anything, but they really couldn't afford to move. But when the merger, the AFL, the formation of the AFL popped up in 1960, the NFL all of a sudden was like, whoa, yeah, that's a good, Cardinals, that's a good idea. We'll move you to another city. Apparently, Papa Bear Hallis apparently came up with Papa Bear and the Bears, or whatever, came up with about, when I was reading, possibly up to $500,000 he paid just to get the Cardinals out of Chicago, so where the Bears could be the only team, only show in town, only game in town in Chicago. But the NFL kind of open arms, like, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll move you to another city, because what the NFL wanted to do was to expand into as many cities as they could, to take away some good places that the AFL could form. And so they moved them to St. Louis, a very good, popular sports town. So things worked out well for the Cardinals. In one respect, they're still looking for their first championship since '47, but at least they were able to move to St. Louis. But you can just see here, it was not a good year for them. They were giving up points left and right here. There were quite a few games they got They scored 7 points here, and 7 points here, and then 3 points there, and 7. So it's just not a very good team. Likewise, same thing could be pretty much said for the Redskins. I mean, if you look at them, I mean, after this game, spoiler alert, the Redskins would win this game, and actually they would be in first place, tied for first place, 2-1 after 3 weeks. But then you'll notice that they too, after this game, only won one game the whole rest of the season. Somehow they would wind up beating the Baltimore Colts, who were the defending NFL champions and also who would win the 59 championship game. So just to go to show you, on any given Sunday, even a crappy team could beat a really good team. But I mean, I said after this game here, they would win 23-14. They would not win. They would only win one other game the whole rest of the season. You see a whole lot of L's there. So the Redskins would win 3 games during the 59 season. The Chicago Cardinals would only win 2. So it was just not the best of times. And obviously, for the Redskins, who won their last championship, was in 42. They went to the one of their last champions was 40. It was in 45 when they lost to the Cleveland Rams 15-14. And then 45, 46 on, there was no championship games for them. They did. They lost. They won in 42. They beat the Bears. They lost to the Bears in 43, and then they lost to the Rams in 45. And they went to the next championship they would go to would be Super Bowl 7, where they would lose. But so they went from 42 until 1982. They had to go 40 years before they actually won another championship, where the Redskins would beat the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. So I mean, times were not that good. I mean, the Redskins would actually get a couple winning seasons during the 50s, but they would have to wait until 59. They'd have to wait till actually 1969 until Vince Lombardi would take over, sadly, for just his one season as the coach, and he would turn them into winners. They were 7-5-2. And 2 years later, George Allen would come around, and he would make them proverbial winners every year. But Mike Nixon was not a very good coach, and he would only be around for one more season with the Redskins. And actually, this season was good compared to what they finished in 1960. In 1960, they won one game. They were 1-9-2. But that's okay. That was even better than what they had the next season. They went from 1-9-2 to 1-12-1. So they went back-to-back one-win seasons. So this was not the best of times, actually, for either one of these teams. But as you see here, the Redskins would prevail here. And actually, after 3 weeks, third week in the season, they're actually tied for first place. But this game was played at Griffith Stadium, and for the first time all season, they started playing their exhibition games in August, and we're halfway into October, and they finally got to play a home game, good old Griffith Stadium. So let's take a little. Let's see here. Let's go good old Wikipedia and talk about a little Griffith Stadium action here. All right, here we go. Griffith Stadium stood in Washington, D.C. from 1911 to 1965. The site was once home to the wooden baseball park built in 1891. It was called Boundary Field or National Park after the team that played there, the Washington Senators / Nationals. It was destroyed by a fire in 1911. So something had to be done. It was replaced by a steel and concrete structure, at first called National Park and then American League Park. It was renamed Clark Griffith Stadium for Washington Senators owner Clark Griffith in 1923. The stadium was home to the American League Senators from 1911 through 1960 and to an expansion team of the same name for their first season in 1961. Venue hosted All-Star games, World Series games. Hosted the Negro World Series in 43 and 44. It was also home to the Washington Redskins of the National Football League for 24 seasons. From the time that they transferred from Boston after the 1936 season. from 1937 through the 1960 season. The ballpark was demolished in 1965. The site is now occupied by Howard University Hospital. March 17, 1911, Boundary Field, also known as National Park and American League Park, was destroyed by fire, started by a plumber's blowtorch. One blowtorch started a fire, destroyed the whole stadium. Wow. This left the owners of the Senators in a difficult situation. Since spring training had already begun and opening day was less than a month away, Thomas C. Noyes, president of the Senators, gained approval from the club's board of directors to build a new ballpark with a steel grandstand on the same site as Boundary Field. The quick construction of the ballpark was reported by the Washington Post. Day and night, the chanting of the laborers has been heard in the vicinity. Like Aladdin's palace, the structure rose as if by magic. Opening day, 1911, the grandstand was sufficiently stable to host President William Howard Taft and the Boston Red Sox, as well as 16,000 fans. Wow. Construction of Griffith Stadium continued while the Senators won the road and was not completed until July 24th, 1911. But, since day and night. So opening day. So they had opening day was less than a month away. So in less than a month, wow, that's unbelievable. They worked day and night. The stadium was laid out at an angle within its block in the Washington Street grid. I'll just show you pictures of that. Thus, it was over 400 feet down the left field line to the bleachers. Though this distance was shortened in later years by the construction of an inner fence. The fence also took an unusual right angle just into right center field where a large tree and 5 houses stood. Due to the unwillingness of the owners of the tree and the houses to sell to the Senators owners during construction of the stadium. Wow. Well, we'll take a look at that too. In the early 1920s, a trend began of fans flocking in great numbers to the stadium to see baseball's rising stars from opposing teams. See one right here, right? I mean, it's just how crazy is this, right? The right field seats and row houses with bootleg bleachers before the high fence was installed. We just see the people on the rooftops over here and everything watching. I mean, crazy. By the time of the 1925 World Series, the right field pavilion had also been double-decked. An angling right field wall and its scoreboard were reconstructed to align with the low right field wall. It was about 8 feet inside of it. This also resulted in a unique inward-pointing 90-degree angle in center field. Both versions of the tall fence had the effect of keeping the neighbors in the adjacent row houses from watching the games for free. Lights were installed during the 1941 season. Now, the dimensions. Center field was generally reported as 426 feet, but there was some vagueness about the precisely where that 426 was measured to. The actual straightaway center field spot was never marked. The center field point to the right of straightaway center and where the flagpole was located was reported at 409 feet or 408 feet. The right field foul line was typically reported as 328 feet. I mean, it's a nice sized park. You figure the left center field angle is 391. Direct center field remained unmarked, which is odd. It's a bit odd. Usually dead center's got something there. 408 was the center field point. 438, the left corner of the bullpen, 401 the right corner of the bullpen, 472 right of the scoreboard, 320 right field foul line. A lot of presidents threw out first balls there. All right, football. Griffith Stadium hosted numerous football events before the Redskins moved there in 1937. After they were the Boston Redskins up to 1936. And the reason why they left Boston was because they had a hard time getting fans there, period. It was also the home of the Georgetown Hoyas football team from 1921 till 1950. Now you see right here, I mean, it just goes to show you, it's just crazy. I mean, I don't think Georgetown has a football team anymore. I mean, if it does, they're keeping it a secret. 1923, Georgetown Hoyas versus the Quantico Marines. I hope I said that right. At Griffith Stadium. And you just look here, just chock full of people. Georgetown versus the Marines in 1923. I mean, look, it's just full of people. Let's see, the George Washington Colonels football team from 1930 to 1960, and the Maryland Terrapins football team in 1948. Now, don't forget, Washington is very close to Maryland. Stadium was the host of an annual Thanksgiving Day game between Howard and Lincoln Universities, which is one of the most popular events during the year, drawing many African-American alumni and fans from the surrounding neighborhoods. One major reason for the stadium's early 1920s expansion was that Clark Griffith had envisioned the stadium hosting the annual Army-Navy game played every December. Temporary seats were often placed in right field for football games at Griffith, with the gridiron stretching from left field to first baseline. The exceptional distance from home to the left field area allowed plenty of room for the football area. The Redskins, previously based in Boston and named the Boston Braves, moved their home. Well, I mean, they were the Boston Braves for 1 year. They were 1932. 1933, they were the Boston Redskins. 1933 to 36, they were the Boston Redskins. So for 1 year. Moved their home to D.C. and the first time after the 1936 season, they said the Boston Redskins played in the 1936 championship game. And actually, oddly, it's like pretty much the only championship game ever that the home field advantage was given up. The home field was supposed to be played at Fenway Park, home to the Redskins. But the players, winners and losers, received a certain, of the gate, of the amount of people that showed up. So you wanted to win the championship. It was also about, I ain't saying this because things are very greedy nowadays. It's all about teams want to win Super Bowls, but a lot of it's about the Benjamins. But I even think it was even more about the Benjamins back then than about winning championships. So they moved the game from Fenway Park to the Polo Grounds, where they were hoping to get a lot more people. They got more people. I think it was only about 20,000 fans showed up. But that meant that each player, winner and loser, got a bigger share of the pie. So each, the player got some more extra money because they moved it to the Polo Grounds. Griffith Stadium was the location of the 1940 and 42 NFL championship games. Now, these championship games couldn't be farther apart from what happened. 1940, they hosted the championship, the Redskins, and they lost 73 to the worst score in NFL history. Period, bar none, end of story. The 1942 championship game, the Redskins managed to defeat possibly, and now this is also, we're talking about the war years. Some teams were really depleted. Other teams, like for some reason, the Bears weren't. The Bears were just straight up killing people during the 1942 season. Possibly, maybe the best team of all time. once again, it was wartime too. Some teams were depleted, and some teams were depleted so bad they had to merge with other teams just to stay afloat. For some reason, the Bears weren't. Don't know why exactly, but that's the way it was. But during the 1942 season, the Bears were just straight up killing people. And, you know, it looked like they were just going to walk in against the Redskins and win the 42. Nope. Not only that, but they only scored 6 points. They couldn't even kick an extra point. They couldn't even kick a field goal. Nothing. I think it was just they scored 6 points. I think it was a touchdown, and they lost 14-6. That was one of the biggest upsets to me, anyway, in NFL history. 1942 championship game. But anyway, 1940, as you see here, 1940 championship game was a 73-0 triumph of the Bears over the Redskins, the highest scoring shutout game in the history of the NFL. Championship game 1942 was essentially a rematch with nearly the same players, and this time the Redskins upset the previously undefeated Bears. The Bears went in there undefeated. The Bears went into championship games a couple times undefeated and came out losers. This was one of them. They lost 14-6. According to Richard Whittington's History of the Chicago Bears, George Preston Marshall, the owner of the Redskins, gave his team a pregame prep talk that consisted simply of writing 73-0 on the chalkboard. I guess that's all he needed. During the Redskins game of the afternoon of December 7, 1941 against the Eagles, an announcement was made over Griffith Stadium public address system commanding all the American generals and admirals there to report to their duty stations. That was sadly the attack of Pearl Harbor. Very, very sad. Although the Redskins enjoyed only one winning record at home, they were 4-2 in 1956 during the final 13 seasons at Griffith Stadium. They still finished there with an 81, 58-6 overall record at the stadium for 24 seasons. So let's go show you. Got a couple pictures here. All right, let's go here. All right, let's see here. Oh, there we are. Got some pictures here. Here, this is. I believe this is the set. Yeah, it's the 1940 championship game. Yeah, this is definitely the 40 championship game right here. I believe this is the touchdown run right here. Here's slinging Sammy Ball. He was the main man there. I guess. Let me see. Is this? Okay. Whoops. Washington Redskins game at Griffith Stadium in the snow. Griffith Stadium. Let's see here. There we go. Oh, jeez. They don't have what I was looking at anyway, a ton of stuff. But as you can see, at the Griffith Stadium, got the goalpost there. Obviously, most of the pictures I was finding was from was about baseball. On this date, during a game between the Eagles and the Redskins, this must have been it. I guess this was the 1941. It was the December 7th, 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor. So you can see how the field was set up. This is that game. This is that game. The Georgetown Hoyas and the the Montego Marines or whatever it was, or let's see. Another one. Here we go. There's another one. Same thing. December 7th, 1941. The Eagles played the Redskins. So you can see, I mean, they got some fans there. I mean, but also back in the day, I mean, the Redskins, once they got Sammy Ball, took the 36. Actually, maybe he came around at 37. But once 36 rolled around, from 36 until 45, had those 10 years there. The Redskins were very, very good. And as you can see here, it's about 1941. Yeah, they drew. Right. So going from Boston now, if they got Sammy Baugh and the Redskins were still in Boston, maybe they started drawing there. Who knows? We'll never find out. But as you can see here, when they had Sammy Baugh and they started winning football games and championships and all that, and everything, now they drew. They certainly drew. So once again, just another lovely stadium. Shame it's not around anymore, but it is what it is. So let's go. Let's start looking at some articles here. We're going to go to the day before, the October 10th, 1959, of the Evening Star, a newspaper from Washington, D.C. All right, so October 10th. I'm going to find it. I got 37,000 tabs here. All right, here we go. Now, a couple guys, the Glick brothers may have to delay meeting each other. Oh, here we go. A football reunion of the Glick brothers, Gary and Freddie, planned tomorrow at Griffith Stadium, may have to be postponed because of Freddie's injured knee. 29-year-old Gary is a defensive halfback with the Redskins, while the 22-year-old brother plays a defensive backfield position for the Cardinals. Gary was still with the Pittsburgh Steelers the last time the brothers met in a Steelers-Cardinals exhibition game in St. Louis a month ago. Freddie was covering Gary on a pass play, and he was on the ball. But somehow his feet got tangled. Gary made the catch and scored a touchdown. If he scores tomorrow, it will have to be with an intercepted pass. Gary, who wears number 21 for the Redskins, is 5 pounds heavier than Freddie at 190. But the latter, number 49 on the Cardinals roster, is just as tall at 6'1", and scout reports indicate that he's just as tough. Gary was Pittsburgh's bonus draft choice 3 years ago, but Freddie was the Cardinals' 23rd pick this year. The Cardinals were due to work out at 3 p.m. today at Griffith Stadium. The game also will be a sort of homecoming for Sonny Randall, speedy University of Virginia end, who celebrated his pro debut against the Redskins 2 weeks ago by taking a 22-yard touchdown pass from King Hill. The one-time Cavalier trackman is rated one of the Cardinals' brightest rookies prospects. Cardinals secondary defense is expected to have Johnny Roach as Mississippi State's Billy Stacy at the safeties, with Night Train Lane and Jimmy Hill at the wings. Carl Brett Schneider, Jack Patera, and Bill Coleman will back up the line. Quarterback Eddie LeBaron piloted the Redskins to 193 yards on the ground and 226 through the air against the Cardinals in their first meeting. But Coach Pop Ivy is expected to have his men a little tighter this time. Yeah, last time both teams put up big numbers offensively. The Redskins in their week one. Sorry, I got my dog at my legs here. Both teams put up a lot of in their initial meeting. A lot of yards. There was no defense. I don't even know if the teams even had defense on the field. The Redskins kept shooting themselves in the foot. They lost big time, but they had many opportunities between fumbles and interceptions that they just squandered. The game could have been a lot closer. All right, we'll go to the Chicago Tribune here. All right. The October 11th, 1959 edition of the Chicago Tribune. Cards battle Redskins for division lead. Both teams are just horrible. But for a little glimmer of hope, they got a chance to battle for the lead. Division lead. It's brand new football season in the National Football League, Eastern Division, and the Chicago Cardinals and the Washington Redskins will help inaugurate its Sunday at Griffith Stadium. Owners of the Eastern Division 6 clubs who recognize equally of competition as a necessary adjunct to whirling turnstiles, must be in a state of rapture as they pursue the team's standings going into Sunday's round of activities. Redskins reverse selves. All six clubs are leading the division, or all six are in last place, however you want to look at it. Depending on your vantage point, this unique situation is due to the fact that each team has won one game and lost one. Sunday's games, thus, mark the start of a new race in which all the contenders are exactly even. And there's the, the starting lineups for each team. The Cardinals and Redskins are all well aware of this fact, although there is a suspicion the Redskins may have a psychological edge on the visiting Chicagoans. Washington defeated by the Cardinals 49-21 in the opener 2 weeks ago, underwent an incredible metamorphosis and sent the highly rated Pittsburgh Steelers sprawling last Saturday 23-17 after the Cardinals blew out the Redskins. The Redskins coach Mike Nixon just threatened many of the players. They said, if we don't get better performance from them, we're just going to cut you. But he also had long practices, something you can't do nowadays. The guys make $85 trillion a year. Heaven forbid they should actually have to practice for long periods of time. Can't do that anymore. They get all mad over that. But back in the day, you could, if you wanted to hold practice a little bit longer, you could do that. Once again, can't do that nowadays. Guys' feelings get hurt. Ooh, we had to practice. Ooh. The Cards, on the other hand, lost to the Cleveland Browns 34-7 in their second 1959 game in a muddy affair that was strictly no contest. It is likely that the Redskins Sunday will still be riding the momentum of the victory over Pittsburgh. The Cards would do well to forget that easy triumph in the opener. This may be a different Washington team, and it would be. Coach Mike Nixon, who threatened to fire nearly everybody after Washington's opening loss, sent the Redskins through an all-out scrimmage preparatory to last week's game with Pittsburgh, an almost unheard-of departure from pro football training tradition. This week, Nixon again called for scrimmage, but the proceedings were ended abruptly by a fistfight and another near brawl. So, that's the way things go. Obviously, you start beating up on your own guys after a while. Tempers start to flare, especially early in the season. It's hot and all that and everything like that. So you can't do that stuff nowadays. That's a no-no. Guys get their feelings hurt. All right, so let's go. Start talking about the game. Let's go to the October 12th, 1959 edition of the Chicago Tribune. And this was also known the third week of the 1959 season, sadly, as the Bert Bell game, Bert Bell, whatever you want to call it, because sadly, the commissioner of the NFL, Bert Bell, was stricken by a heart attack at the Eagles-Steelers game, and he died. He collapses in Penn Stadium where he started. Commissioner Bert Bell, the National Football League, under whose guidance the sport gained major status, died Sunday of a heart attack. He was only 65. Bell collapsed in the seats of the very stadium in which he started his rise from college player to commissioner of professional football. He suffered a fatal attack while doing the thing he loved best, watching a pro game. He was carried from Franklin Field, where the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles, teams he once owned and coached, were playing a league game. Cut down here. He had an attack in February. Dad was sitting in the end zone where he usually sat with some of his friends. He was feeling very good. there was no indication that he wasn't feeling well. He was very conscious of his heart condition and was very careful. He did not overwork. On our way down to the game, all he talked about was football. He always was talking football. That was his whole life. Suffered a mild heart attack in February. He'd been under a doctor's care for the last few years. His travel was limited. Apparently, he was unconscious when I first saw him, said the doctor. He never regained consciousness. We administered oxygen and adrenaline. It must have been a very massive thing to take his life so instantly. Yeah. Shame. Absolute shame. All right. Ralph the Googe, or Guglielmi, I just call him the Googe for short, who once wore the mantle of greatness at Notre Dame, who's a former All-American at Notre Dame, brushed the dust off his pants Sunday and, with proud assurance, led the Washington Redskins to a 23-14 victory over the Chicago Cardinals. The Googe, hero of the 1955 College All-Stars victory over the Cleveland Browns. Now, that's embarrassing. When the pro team loses to a bunch of college players. Ooh. Took over Eddie LeBaron, the Redskins starting quarterback for the Redskins, their starting quarterback early in the second quarter. LeBaron never got his job back as the Googe for the second successive Sunday, moved the Redskins to victory. The one-time Irish star completed a 58-yard scoring pass to end Bill Anderson in the third quarter that broke a 7-7 deadlock and sent the Cardinals into a tailspin from which they could not recover. The short-sleeved crowd, or maybe the short-sleeved crowd, of 25,937, which watched the game in 83-degree weather, applauded as the Redskins confronted Coach Frank Pop Ivy of the Cardinals with his own offense. Washington scored a first-quarter touchdown on a drive in which there was a liberal sprinkling of plays off the double-wing T, which is Ivy's standard formation. After the Cards finally figured out how to stop their own plays, the Redskins switched back to their standard T formation for the remainder of a thrill-packed contest, which was as loosely played as it was officiated. Ooh. Cardinals were victim of 8 penalties, which set them back for a total of 71 yards. One of the most questionable calls cut off a Chicago. All right, let's see here. Well, might have to go a few pages. Oh, wait. Nope. That's a thing on Bell. This should be it. Here we go. Okay. One of them cut off a Chicago drive for what would have been a tying touchdown on the first play of the fourth quarter. So penalties came to bite the Cardinals. On the play, John Crow caught a 17-yard pass from quarterback King Hill and was tackled only a yard short of the goal line. But a clipping penalty called on Woodley Lewis set the Cards back to the Redskins 32, and a fourth down field goal attempt by Bobby Conrad failed. Fumbles again hurt the Cardinals. Fullback Mal, Hammock, and Hill each dropped the ball twice, and the Redskins recovered all 4 times. That is the exact opposite of what happened the first time the two teams played. The first time the Redskins had fumbles and interceptions and just killed their drives. Now, they lost 49-21. Now, were they going to score another 4 touchdowns? Probably not, but they certainly could have scored more points and made the game a little bit tighter. Crow, the Cardinals' greatest offensive threat, was active both as a pass receiver and as a ball handler on reverse plays. But Crow, for reasons apparently known only to quarterback Hill, was not allowed to carry the ball a single time from scrimmage. With the victory, the Redskins gained revenge for the 49-21 drubbing administered them by the Cardinals 2 weeks ago in Chicago. The first of Hammock's two fumbles led to the Redskins' opening touchdown. Ed Meadows, former Chicago Bear, who now is a defensive end for Washington, recovered when Hammock dropped a handoff from Hill on the Cardinal 40-yard line. The Redskins went into their surprise double wing tee, and 7 plays later, fullback Don Bossler bolted over from the 1-yard line for a touchdown. Late in the first quarter, the Cardinals tied it up with a 93-yard drive, which required only 12 plays. The key play, which gained 32 yards, was a long lateral from Hill to Bobby Conrad, who then threw to Lewis on the sideline at midfield. A couple of more tricky aerial maneuvers moved the Chicagoans to the Washington 23. Hammock and Hill then lugged the ball to the 1 in total of 3 carries, and Hill sneaked over. After a scoreless second quarter, the Redskins broke the tie in the third period following a fumble by Hill. Hanson Churchwell recovered for the Redskins on the Washington 42, and the Googe then brought the crowd to its feet with the afternoon's most spectacular play. He waited patiently behind good protection while Anderson, the Redskins' left end, outran Cardinal defenders John Roach, Jerry Norton, and Bill Stacy. Anderson took the Googe's toss on the 13 and easily scored. The Cardinals dropped farther behind in the fourth quarter when Ed Sutton ran 1 yard around end for a touchdown to climax a 61-yard march of 13 plays. Battling frantically to get back into the game, the Cards finally scored again with only 3:30 remaining when Hill threw 18 yards to Sonny Randall on the 1, then bolted into the end zone and a quarterback sneak to make it 21-14. The Cards had the ball only once more with 35 seconds remaining. Hill faded to pass in his own end zone and was trapped for a safety by Washington. So that's where you got the 23-14 at. There's the got some stats here. Both teams gained about 300 yards. Now this was like nothing. Both teams gained a lot more yards than their first meeting. So the defense is really tightened up. 71 yards penalized, 50 there for the Redskins. But you see here, fumbles. The Cardinals fumbled 4 times, lost every one, but the Redskins fumbled twice, lost them both. What we got here? Number had intercepted. Washington had 1 intercepted. So, all right, and we're going to go to the Baltimore Sun. Let's see what they got to say here on the situation. All right, the Baltimore Sun, the October 12th, 1959 edition of the Baltimore Sun. All right, here we go. Washington wins 23-14. The Googe paces the Redskins. Fumbles hurt the Cardinals. Whoops. I hate when that happens. There we are. All better. All right. Washington Redskins seized Chicago fumbles and flew to a 23-14 victory over the Cardinals today on Ralph the Googe's rocket passes. Fumbles, the Cards lost 4 altogether, precede 2 Redskin touchdowns, and the same kind of sloppy ball handling by Washington led directly to Chicago's last score on a plunge by quarterback King Hill. That touchdown, Hill's second of the afternoon before a Griffith Stadium crowd of 25,937 pulled the Cardinals within 7 points of the Redskins at 21-14 with 3 minutes and 20 seconds left to go. I said, which is a big difference. I mean, because the Cardinals scored 7 touchdowns the first time. And here it took them 56 and a half minutes just to score their second touchdown. With Hill connecting consistently on second-half passes, the Cards were still a distinct threat. Sam Baker, the Redskins' reliable kicker, kept them off with a skyscraping 59-yard punt that pushed Chicago back close to its own goal. Tackle Bob Toneff applied the clincher, stopping Hill in the end zone to turn an attempted pass into the safety that wrapped up Washington's first victory in a home opener since 1953. Don Bosler sent the Redskins ahead on a 1-yard touchdown dive in the first period. The Cards' fancy Dan attack even at 7-all before the quarter was out, as you can see here. Right, nothing. They were scored in the second quarter. Washington scored 7, and then they scored a touchdown in the fourth, and then had the safety. Don Bosler sent the Redskins ahead on a 1-yard touchdown dive in the first period. The Cards' fancy Dan attack even at 7-all before the quarter was out. The Googe replacing starter Eddie LeBaron at quarterback was the pitcher on a 58-yard pass play, which took Bill Anderson into the Cards' end zone in the third period to put the Redskins up 14-7. Ed Sutton tallied on a short sprint around end in the fourth quarter after a 41-yard pass from the Googe to Joe Walton had moved the Redskins into scoring position. And you can also see here, this game here, the Packers won a real tight one against the 49ers. And after 3 weeks, the Packers were the only team to be undefeated in the NFL. Everybody else had one loss. But after this, the Packers were 3-0, first place in the Western Division. But then they would go on to lose their next 5 games. All right, let's go to the Evening Star, Washington. The one thing, sadly, about is that everybody wants a winner and all this stuff. The Cardinals, I mean, the coverage they got from the press was just like they were almost like an afterthought. It really was. I mean, the Bears seemed to get far better coverage than the Cardinals ever did. I mean, I'm going back to like the 20s and all that. The Cardinals just did not get good coverage in the papers. Or if they did from a certain paper, I'm not aware of it. And it was the same thing in this game here, too, especially if it was an away game for the Cardinals. All right, let's see here. We got, where are we at here? An Evening Star. Okay. The October 12th, 1959 edition of the Evening Star. Here we got a picture. The Cardinals were just white helmets. It was just like a high school team. I mean, there's like nothing. You know what I mean? Just a white helmet. Yeah. I mean, some teams maybe didn't have nothing, but at least they had a stripe down there or something. At least the Redskins had like feathers on the back of their helmet. I mean, the Cardinals had like a white helmet. Yeah, nothing. I mean, no stripes on the arms, nothing. I mean, my goodness, just numbers, no names, nothing. And that's pretty much how they played. Fullback Don Bosler of the Redskins plows through for the first touchdown of yesterday's game against the Cardinals at Griffith Stadium. Trying to stop him are halfback John Roach, 33, linebacker Jack Patera, 61. Behind Bosler, Eddie LeBaron. So Eddie LeBaron was in the game. Oh, there's little Eddie. Little Eddie, and he was little. That was the first touchdown of the game. All right, the Googe to Anderson team making hay for the Redskins. And once again, they talk about Burt Bell. Burt Bell's death shakes pro football world. Just a shame. 57-yard score paves the way for the Cardinals. The Chicago Cardinals were trying to figure out the spelling of welcome when the doormat was yanked out from under them by the Redskins before 25,937 fans yesterday at Griffith Stadium. The Washington 11 new long-range scoring combination from the Googe to Bill Anderson unhorsed the visitors, breaking a 7-7 tie and paving the way for the Redskins' 23-14 victory. A week ago, it was the Googe's 70-yard scoring throw to Anderson that provided the momentum for a 23-17 upset victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yesterday's play was good for 57 yards as Anderson made one of the most spectacular catches seen here in many years and outraced Bill Stacy, John Roach, and Jerry Norton to the end zone. The victory sent the resurgent Redskins into a three-way tie with the Giants and Eagles for the National Football League's Eastern Division lead. All three teams were 2-1. It also fully atoned for a 49-21 loss to the same Cardinals 2 weeks ago. The Googe's throw, one of 7 he completed in 9 tries for 144 yards, might have elevated him into the number 1 spot ahead of the Baron, who had one of his rare off days with 1 completion in 5 attempts. But Coach Mike Nixon took the situation in stride. Let's say that we've got 2 fine quarterbacks, Mike said, and that we'll continue to use them to the best advantage. It was a nip-and-tuck affair until the Googe spun the leather bullet out in front of the long-striding Anderson. Twice in the second period, the Redskins called on Sam Baker to try to move out in front of the enemy, but Sam's tries from 50 and 39 yards out were off the mark. In the third quarter, before the Cardinals were out of it, Bobby Joe Conrad attempted a 46-yard placement, but it too was wide. Just back then, field goal tries were not as automatic as they're. Today, kickers miss a field goal. It depends upon who the kicker is, though. But some guys miss a field goal or two, and nowadays they can be gone. It wasn't that way back then. You can miss a couple field goals in a game. You can miss a couple field goals a couple weeks in a row and still have a job. Not like that anymore. The Baron, who opened at quarterback and piloted the team to a 7-0 lead early in the first period, seemingly tired in all right, so we got to go to page 19. So let me stop that and go to page 19. Once again, if I got to find it here, is that it? Nope. The Evening Star. There we go. Page 19 of the Evening Star. October 12th, 1959 edition. So apparently, I don't know if this had anything to do with what happened to Eddie LeBaron, but it said apparently he was tiring maybe in the humid 84-degree temperature, and after being short on a long throw to Anderson and 2 more to Joe Walton, he retired in favor of Ralph Guglielmi, the Googe. Ralph had his troubles at the start, but after the payoff pitch to Anderson, he masterminded an 80-yard splurge for the team's 3rd touchdown to cap a successful day. The game was almost a complete reversal of the first meeting between the teams, when the Redskins frittered away their chances with a series of costly fumbles. Yesterday, the Cardinals miscue fumbled 4 times, and each time the Redskins recovered. Nixon rubbed it in by varying his offense with the double wing formations that helped open up the Cards' defenses. Coach Frank Pop Ivy said his men weren't completely surprised by the maneuver, but they had trouble stopping it. Fullback Mal Hammock's bobble, recovered by end Ed Meadows, touched off the first Washington scoring drive. This was a 39-yard advance featured by the running of Jim Podoley, Dick James, and Don Bossler, climaxed by the latter's scoring plunge from the 1-yard line. That was that picture that I showed you. Meadows dislocated his shoulder 2 plays later and was replaced by Art Gobb. Ooh. The Cardinals retaliated late in the same period when King Hill filled the air with footballs and took them 93 yards to a score. The former Rice star carried the ball into the end zone himself from the 1-yard line. Early in the third quarter, with both teams hitting for keeps, the Cards had the first chance to break the tie after recovering James' fumble and pounded down to the Washington 4-yard line. But Hammock fumbled and Richie McCabe recovered for the Redskins on the 1-yard line. And another fumble, this one by Conrad, followed the next time Chicago got the ball, and this was costly. On the first, well, the other one was costly too because it took points off the board for the Cardinals. This one didn't maybe take points off the board for the Cardinals, but this fumble here gave points to the Redskins. So it was exact reversal from the first time these two teams played. The Redskins shot themselves in the foot with turnovers. This time it was the Cardinals' turn. But both teams were just not very good. Conrad fouled the next time Chicago got the ball, and this was costly. In the first play, Legooge stepped back, gave Anderson a chance to get into high gear and fired. More passes by Hill with an interference penalty against Washington's Bill Stitz helping brought the visitors winging back downfield immediately after. On the first play of the fourth quarter, Hill threw what should have been a touchdown pass to John Crow, but Woodley Lewis was detected shoving on the play, and instead of getting 6 points, Chicago got a 15-yard penalty. After that narrow escape, the Googe called on Ed Sutton, Don Bosler, James, and Johnny Olszewski to march the ball from Washington's 20-yard line to its third touchdown. One of the key plays was a 40-yard jump pass to Walton on the Chicago 30. The hardworking James' second fumble of the sultry afternoon, recovered by Bill Coleman on the Washington 20, set up Chicago's second touchdown late in the period. Hill got this one, too, on a quarterback sneak. Any fleeting hopes the Cardinals may have entertained after that were dispelled when Bob Tonoff nailed Hill in the end zone for a safety with less than 2 minutes to go. Then, of course, after that, you got the free kick. The Cardinals had to give the ball back now, to the Redskins with less than 2 minutes. And, of course, 9 points. Even nowadays, 9 points is still 2 scores. So, I mean, you're down by 9 points with under 2 minutes to go. That's a death warrant right there. Let's see, page 18. So let's see, comment. There was another, let me see here. There's another article. Let me see if I can find anything here. Okay. Just a little something, a little bit more on the Burt Bell. Very, very, very sadly, very sadly. Let me see here. Go back here one more time now. All right, to the Evening Star. Here we go. One more time. Got this other little article, just real fast here. News of Burt Bell's death. Cast shadow here. Commissioner Burt Bell's sudden death yesterday took some of the edge off the Redskins' 23-14 victory over the Chicago Cardinals at Griffith Stadium. Word was passed in the press box in the fourth quarter that the popular Bell had passed away. And when the writers gathered in Coach Mike Nixon's dressing room for the customary post-game session, they were in a somber mood. George Marshall, obviously stunned by the news, threw up his hands when asked if he had any comment. What can you say? The Redskins owner said, or asked. It's really a great loss, not only to the National Football League, which is obvious, but a tremendous loss to football and all sports. Without any reflection on any commissioner, living or dead, this man easily was the outstanding commissioner of all time in any sport. He he certainly helped growing the sport, but it kept growing. Obviously in the 60s, it kept going. 70s, and we are today. It's growing, right? But he was very popular too. So Marshall said the league never would find a man as good as Bell to take the post. He laughed off suggestions that he might be a candidate. Here I am, over 500 for the first time with the Redskins, and you want to kick me out. I'll be a candidate if we lose. The Redskins boss said he thought that Austin H. Gunzel, former FBI agent, who was the league's treasurer and who was Bert Bell's right-hand man, or possibly Bert Bell Jr., ought to take over the job temporarily. He thinks both are well qualified, having been associated with Bell for so long. And being so familiar with his policies. Marshall suggested that Happy Chandler, governor of the Kentucky, former senator and one-time baseball commissioner, might be a good man for the permanent job. Why not, Marshall asked, when some eyebrows were raised as if to ask if he were joking. He'd be a good one. It was offered to him once, and he turned it down to be commissioner of baseball. The immediate result of the Redskins' victory was a well-earned two-day holiday. The squad won't turn out until Wednesday, which almost automatically cancels any scrimmage plans Coach Mike Nixon may have in mind. Mike said he'd have to count noses before deciding whether to continue the weekly skirmishes. The most serious injury was defensive end Ed Meadows' dislocated shoulder, which occurred early in the first quarter. The one-time Duke star, whose play had given the entire team a lift, will be out 3 to 4 weeks at least, and he'll be missed. Other injured were end Joe Walton, halfback Jim Podoley, and center Jim Schrader, his knees, halfback Dick James, hip, and defensive halfback Ben Scotty, a groin. Then, of course, from Coach Pop Ivy of the Cardinals was sitting by himself in an anteroom. The Cardinals dressing room. I'm just instead of changing pages here. Dressing room were interviewed after the game. Walter Wolfner, executive director of the club, and Charles Bidwell Jr., president of the Cardinals, sat in another room by themselves. Our defeat was not caused by any lack of effort on our part, Ivy said. The boys played as hard as ever, but things didn't break well for us. They, the Redskins, didn't out-hustle us, but today you saw us fumbling instead of them. We lost 2 touchdowns on fumbles and a penalty. That was the difference. So, and obviously, and that's the way it is nowadays, though, right? Turnovers, they'll get you. But most of the time, it seems like they either take points off because you're driving, and you taking points off the board for you, or the other team gets them maybe in your territory, and so you're not getting points, but you're giving the other team points. And it was the way it was back then. But I mean, back then, my goodness, the amount of turnovers teams came up with was just unbelievable. I mean, compared to the turnover, today turnovers are so, teams from now and then will have multiple turnover games and all that, but not the way they did back then. I mean, they were just sometimes they would passing turnovers out like candy. But neither one of these teams was very good. So for one brief week, the Washington Redskins were 2-1, tied for first place. But there was 9 weeks left to go in this season. And in those final 9 weeks, the Redskins would win 1 game and the Cardinals would win 1 game. So the Redskins would finish the season with 3 wins. And the Cardinals would finish the season with 2 wins. So the Redskins won this one, but neither team is going anywhere anytime soon. So that's the way it was on this date, October 11th, 1959, when the Chicago Cardinals played the Washington Redskins at Griffith Stadium in pro football first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.